Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee meeting, May 21st. I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll just start with a quick moment of reflection. Thank you very much. I'm just, for the record, I know that Ron Lampman and Michael Azinga unfortunately cannot be here today. They've said regrets. We're hoping Reed Baird is still going to be able to join us today. He's running a little bit late with another meeting. I'm going to ask, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof, knowing you can fully state later if necessary? And seeing nothing, moving on. Public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by 4 p.m. on that day by contacting clerk@meaford.ca or 519-538-1060, extension 1110. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. We have no presentations in that forum today. We will have a couple of things going on that we will be seeing today that will be very interesting, but no actual presentations. So we'll move right into the approval of the minutes. And the recommendation is that the minutes of the March 19th, 2025 meeting of the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee be approved as presented. I presume everybody's had a chance to see them as they've went out. So do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Kelly, thank you very much. And Evelyn, any questions or comments on the minutes?
Terms of the minutes, not what was in there, is that part of the discussion was talking about, and we wanted that item to come on as an agenda item related to looking at we have 5 meetings left of this committee and looking at in terms of reference.
Oh, yeah, your mic on there, Evelyn. Sorry.
And we were looking at the terms of reference and wanted to just chat about the kind of why we're having these meetings as it was laid out and how could we best use our time for that. So we wanted that as a follow-up from the minutes.
Okay, and yes, we did not do that on this agenda, but are you available for the next agenda meeting? Because I think what we could do is we could maybe sit down, put that on the agenda, and that way we could have a fulsome discussion at the table, because it'll need to be, normally those kind of things need to be on the agenda as an agenda item, and we didn't do that. So would that be okay? And I know then we're down to 4 meetings instead of 5, but.
Yeah, I think Reed and I had and Ron had talked about that to see if we could just have a few minutes and talk about that before we get to planning the next meeting.
Sure. Surely.
Mr. Chair, if I may, and thank you for bringing that thought forward, Evelyn, because what comes to my mind, thinking back to the prior Economic Development Advisory Committee, it was at the time, and we spent a considerable amount of time during the last few meetings kind of creating a recommendation in a plan format to go forward into this committee. And so I'm just wondering, are you kind of thinking of something similar to put together a bit of a suggestive plan coming out of this committee, or are you thinking there are some things that we could still have time to accomplish?
I think we wanted to, because we know that the business retention and expansion study will get underway, and that's been a good start, I think for this year, that we're moving into that. Just that looking at, I think we wanted to have discussions around how the community planning, community vision those kinds of things would work in with, the longer term, like we seem to have addressed shorter term items in economic development, and we felt that the longer term, more strategic economic development issues have not been coming off forward to our table. And so it was that kind of discussion we would like to have. And all we wanted to do today was to spend a few minutes at this meeting to just talk about what it was we were looking for, so that it might set up, as you recommended, is that our next meeting might be more focused on the longer term strategic initiatives that we think this committee should be addressing.
Go ahead.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, just a thought as Evelyn was speaking, and I just didn't want to lose my thought. Perhaps there might be consideration giving then to putting forward a recommendation to council that an update to the economic development strategy be considered, recognizing that 2025 was the date of its completion, so to speak, and whether we want to have a look at revisiting that strategy overall.
I might add, so I was going to bring this up later, but this is going to be a reference because it's a direct correlation with what you're talking about, the minutes and the direction. I was really hoping that CAO Everett could have been here today. Unfortunately, it was a conflict. He couldn't. I did have a meeting. I requested a meeting with CAO and Jessica and Nisa. We did, and Sarah Mahone was there as well. So we had a meeting to literally discuss kind of that, because I knew, again, from past iterations of this committee and present, there's been concerns about directionality. So I wanted to really raise that. And it was a very good conversation. What came out of that, it was really good to hear it actually coming, because I think Sean had said it even before I could address it. He said, when you talk about economic development, he said, it's not just events. It's really much more about, industrial ready lands, planning that. So he is totally kind of on board with that, where we need to go with that, which kind of, hello, Mr. Barrett. So that ended up into a conversation we talked about the BRNE, because this committee's already made that recommendation to council. That kind of was already put forth to council. And to Shirley's point, yes, we do want to get to the point where as well, and he also, so I brought up at that meeting that we do need to discuss, vision planning and that kind of scenario. And he agreed 100% that that's got to be part of it. So it is definitely within his scope and his kind of vision. And what would really be nice, and I'm hoping, Sue, that what we can do is we can, for the next GOE meeting, if we can really try and pre-schedule to make sure that he's here. So then I think we could have that conversation, so that everybody could kind of have that conversation about where that's going and timing and all that.
That sounds really great, and I think that is part of what our concern is. But I think the other part is, we really would like to see this committee spend the last few meetings on, I guess, looking at focusing on long-term investment attraction and investment readiness and things that could be done. And we think that's more than just undertaking a business retention and expansion study. So, if that was I don't know if you make any other.
First of all, let me apologize for my tardiness, but my understanding is that there's kind of a refreshed interest from the Chamber and the Business Improvement Association, perhaps. And if we could focus on kind of the narrower focus, should I say, from growing the economy to investment readiness. There's so much that needs to be done, and there's so limited time left in our term. So I think that's really the issue.
Go ahead, Shirley.
I apologize, Mr. Chair, and I think to that end, it really would be advantageous if our CIO could be present, because I do think he will have some information perhaps to share in that regard that could be of interest to the committee. So yeah, we'll try and get that into Sean's calendar.
And to that end, it's funny because you're right, and he was totally on the same page where that is a focus. It's about, and part of that conversation was also born of the fact that Savannah and Gray County, what they're talking about, she literally announced recently kind of what their focus is going to be in the next year, and it is working with the regional municipalities on investment ready lands, on development lands. So it's within their radar as well. Sean's very well aware of that. Sean's worked with Savannah many times. So I do believe we are now really all on the same page about what the priorities are. So if we can get Sean here for the next meeting, hopefully, then we could have hopefully a very fulsome conversation about that. And he specifically, the conversation was really good because he did say that he would value greatly the participation of this committee in reaching those goals. So whether we had a subcommittee that was kind of working with staff and him and Savannah, whoever, to kind of make that reality, he thinks that's exactly what this body could be designed for and be very helpful with. So we are, I think, lockstep in terms of direction of where we want to go with that. This all came out of the just the minutes of last week, so we haven't even gotten near the agenda yet. So we're just jumping way ahead here, but it's good. So on that note, so Evelyn, I was taking that as you were seconding the minutes. I wasn't sure if you were actually raising a question. Can I have a seconder for the minutes, please? Evelyn, thank you very much. All in favor of accepting the minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Okay, so back to my regular minutes. So I'm going to turn this over to Deputy Mayor, because this is, we're going to have one of the items for consideration is reflections on the council motion on the BIA reinstatement. There's some conversation at that level about interest in that. So I think I'll turn it over to you if you don't mind, Madam Deputy Mayor, and you can give us a little information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and happy to. There was a motion at our last council meeting that was unanimously supported by council, and I really appreciate that. And it was to ask staff to bring forward a report to council that would outline the processes and the desire to go forward with the reinstatement of a BIA. I think everyone here knows that we had a prior BIA and it was disbanded in 2022 in favor of Main Street's Meaford. And unfortunately, Main Street's just wasn't successful in bringing forward the actions that we had hoped that they could. And there's definitely an interest from the downtown businesses in reinstating a BIA. There was a survey undertaken not by myself or staff or any member of council, but by the businesses themselves that I wish I had it with me today, but I don't. But in any event, a number of businesses were approached, and the majority of them said yes, that they were in favor of a BIA coming back to Meaford. And one of the questions on the survey was, would they consider joining the board? And again, a number of them said, maybe on the grounds that they would have to see if it came together. But also a number said yes. So that was really, really encouraging to see that support was there, because I think in the mind of the businesses, the BIA has been missed, and they see it, in terms of a focus on events in the downtown and beautification in the downtown and so on. One of the requests in the motion was to give consideration to the businesses outside of those downtown 2 blocks to see if there was interest in expanding the BIA. That was tried a number of years ago. I was one of the people involved and we went out and talked to the various businesses at that point in time, way before COVID. And you needed to have a 2/3 majority of those businesses interested. And at that time, we did not achieve that. But that could be a whole different scenario now. So that will be considered as well. And I'm very much looking forward to the report from staff. And I also wanted to add that we did have presentation on that Monday from the president of the Chamber of Commerce, JD Meaford, who is here with us in the audience today. And JD spoke to the fact that the chamber was also interested in seeing a BIA reinstated and that they were very willing to work with a BIA. I think, as it was back when we had a former Business Improvement Association, that there was a representative on the chamber from the BIA and vice versa, a member on the BIA from the chamber, and that worked very well for the exchange of communication and collaboration between the two. So we did at that point have Councillor Tony Bell as a representative from council on the BIA, and Councillor Bell has already expressed interest in returning to that position. So I think we're in a really encouraging place in terms of reinstating a BIA. There is funding still in reserves from the past BIA, a significant amount of money that can be utilized to get the organization up and on its feet. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as best I can, but that was pretty much the conversation at council.
Thank you, Shirley. Any questions on the BIA conversation? No. Okay, thank you. Moving on, so point B items, fortunately, we have Crystal Ellis with us today, who's going to be making a presentation. Crystal, the Economic and Business Advisor for the Ministry of Rural Affairs presentation. And just a little preamble is that, so this committee did make a recommendation to council to do a BRE report. That is actually starting and we're getting underway on that. But I think your presentation today is going to give us a bit more information on.
Okay, I'm on, yes. Okay, thank you. So I'm Crystal Ellis. I'm the regional advisor for Grey County and your community. I also cover Bruce County, Simcoe County, and Dufferin County. So we have a large area in terms of regional support that way. For projects, I'm the provincial lead for business retention and expansion. So I work with communities to teach them about the process and really walk them through the steps of how to accomplish a BRE. And we really like to focus our small communities. Everyone does this differently. So we use these concepts. We have larger communities like the town of Stouffville was participating in our training last week, but then we have the smaller communities like yourselves that we find the right reflection to suit your needs. Where am I pointing this? Perfect, thank you. So I think you're all familiar with what a business retention expansion is. We like to start with this as it's a quote from Janet Aldi. If economic development strategies were a family, business retention expansion would be the hardworking, reliable, and largely unrecognized and often overlooked sibling. So it is one of those nice basics that you have a better understanding of who your businesses are. I've used BRE and I've worked in community for years as well. I worked as an economic development officer at a lower tier and as a director of economic development at a county level, was like Savannah's counterpart in that sense. So we would use this as a way to really facilitate what do our businesses need. We don't want to make assumptions about what we think they want or the loud the loud comments from some versus the ones that are just busy doing their job. So we like to use the BRNE as a way to really hear from the businesses so that you can help make those strategic steps forward. And it can be an ongoing process that often goes to the side that way. So the BRNE, it's aimed at supporting the growth and sustainability of existing businesses in the community. You gain insights. Really, the key for our community-led process is that you're building those relationships with your businesses. You're showing up at their door, you're taking some time to talk to them, and you're appreciating that. So really building those foundational steps. I find often after you've gone through some of this process, the businesses will then start reaching out to those people that connected with them. They have that familiar face, and they have that kind person that they can pick up the phone and have those conversations with that way. And really the goal of supporting job creation, stability, and community development. So I'll ask you guys a question. In your current community actions, what actions are you doing to support businesses? I already heard some of them as you were talking, but what do you consider those supports when somebody asks, oh, how's business in Meaford? What are you doing to support your businesses? What's your elevator pitch?
Come on, people, don't be shy. Sure.
That's a loaded question, but in a nutshell, in my mind, it's our role as a municipality to create the environment in the downtown core where businesses can be successful and vibrant. And it's lots of things. It's all the elements of our CIP. It's the flowers, it's keeping the downtown clean, it's dealing with the weeds, it's providing our small and medium business liaison to go out on the street and to work with businesses. It's building the relationship with the Chamber of Commerce. It's creating the BIA. It's, you know, we have the downtown anchors, our library and our Meaford Hall and so on. It's just being here to support that environment.
That's great.
I would add, if I may, just that one personal reflection, council perspective is that I think we've in the past been a little short-sighted on our participation at a staff level. It was reactive, it wasn't proactive. So, and again, through recommendation from this body, we have now put in place, we now have the small business liaison, we have a community engagement coordinator, which we didn't have before. So now we do have more of a true interface with the business community and with the public, which we didn't have before. And I think that is good, are two major steps that we needed in place, just to have a public facing and a dedicated kind of conduit to that body. So that is something that we put in place within the last while. Evelyn.
And I say that our focus has been on businesses within the town rather than businesses within Meaford.
Mhm.
And I think we could. That's why I'm hoping the business retention and expansion will focus on all the businesses, because there's a lot of other businesses that are outside of downtown Meaford. So I think everybody's kind of waiting for that as well, that kind of rate, you know, how's my relationship to that? How can municipality assist?
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you. And think of it as it's the mayor's breakfast that you host too, right? It's the business directory that you have. How are you? You get to a time of crisis when we had the COVID pandemic. Did you have a resource to actually know who your businesses were, who were affected by some of these things that were happening in an emergency management perspective too? So how do you think about those connections, how you support them, and then who participates as well? So I think those are great comments about that focus being on the downtown and the tourism side of things, because it's very much there, but then also who are the other businesses in your community, and what does that look like in terms of that overall economy? Oh, done it again. Just a cliffhanger. Okay. Oh, when I went too far. So why BRNE? And you were talking a little bit before about investment attraction. And I know the county and their overall plan, they do have that investment readiness being a really key focus of the conversation. So not necessarily calling up those businesses and putting them right into place, but making sure that you've got the structures and the pieces in place so that you can attract the right businesses to your community that support the current businesses that you have. When we talk about a BRNE, those are businesses that are already here. And we know that 60 to 80% of new jobs come from existing businesses. And that can be a higher percentage in more rural communities because of the nature of a rural environment. So the why would be it creates more jobs locally. These businesses are already invested. So those potential investments that you have could be coming from existing businesses in your community. Having those conversations with them with the BRNE will help you root some of those out potentially so that you can find those opportunities. One of the questions that we traditionally ask in a BRNE is, do you know of other businesses that are interested in doing business here, right? So a nice warm welcome to get that new business in. So there's ways that you can look at that. Oro Medonte, they recently did a BRNE and they took a focus to vacant land was one of the sections that they looked at. So it stepped away a little bit from a traditional BRNE because they wanted to understand what was the available land in the community, and they had a set of questions. And I think it was probably 8 to 10 different groups of people that they approached, but they got a better sense of what are you looking to do with that land, what their timelines were like. And then you can also look at what is the zoning, what is the potential for some of those pieces as you're looking to do that investment attraction too. So you're talking to the right focus to get those things going. And then existing businesses are about ambassadors for your community. The better relationships, the better ambassadors, people are saying great things in the coffee shop, all of those different things, I think all help your staff do their jobs well too. So short-term goals, really improving relationships, building capacity. You're going to gather some really important data that you can use to help make some decisions. That can also form into feeding your strategic planning as you move forward as well, and address any immediate concerns. So having those sit-down conversations with the businesses, you're able to understand what are the things that are really challenging for them right now. Are there potential things that you can just make a connection to help solve that? And what are the opportunities? So are there some really great successes or some connections that will turn into something that's really great too? In terms of the long term, you're increasing the competitiveness of your existing businesses. So by talking to those groups, your downtown businesses, understanding what their challenges are, what their goals are moving forward, you're able to formulate maybe some activities with your chamber, with your newly formed BIA, to be able to be a little bit more strategic and to have input from everybody with that process. So it is a nice way. I've seen some communities where they've done a BRNE. They have their resource network with their chamber, their community futures. They're all participating in the process or in the overview of what you're hearing. But that group remains connected and you're able to really utilize the support of that group moving forward on lots of different projects. And then with that, you're fostering a suitable environment for business development because you've got a really engaged network of business support. So our Ontario BRNE model, we're action oriented and community based. So if you were to step forward and do a BRNE as we have it in our guidebook and our manual, you gather together a coordinator, volunteers, your resource network, and you work together to go out and interview your businesses, review the data, and then really workshop how you're going to be moving forward with some of that. So that's that overall kind of big picture. Takes a little bit more time. There's a lot more coordinating with people. But there are benefits of how that can really last a lot longer too. But then we also have a staff led. So you take a lot of the same concepts. You're just your staff person or a few volunteers maybe doing those interviews. So it's a little easier to coordinate in that sense of things. But you are still looking at a group, a leadership group comprised of different people within the community, counselors, business support, to be able to help guide the project and make sure that it's fulsome in that respect. And then the final would be a consultant-led BRNE, which those can look different depending on the terms of reference that you use for a project of that sense. So some would hire a consultant company. They may do phone interviews with your business. They may pull data and information and kind of provide a report. So they may not have that direct interaction with the businesses. So you have to be sure to communicate it properly. You may not get the nice like at the table conversations that you would get with a business if you're going out to visit them, but you could build in your engagement as an action to that. So you get your base data and some of that information that the consultant would collect, but then you have to make sure that you foster that time for follow-ups, connections, relationship building with staff and your businesses or with a committee so that you can move forward that way, because that really is that open door and that warm handshake. So we have a 4-stage process that we teach. We talk about preparation and readiness, how they collect the information, how you review it, and then setting your goals and actions with while incorporating performance measures and KPIs so that you can track the value and the importance of the work that you're doing that way. And we also provide support. So I would be the advisor support. We provide sample surveys. No matter what process you go through, we provide these resources and tools. The survey collection, we use that if it's a staff-led or a community process. We provide a Qualtrics survey program that communities can utilize. If you're using a consultant, they'll be using their own systems. And then we try to help customize that so it suits your community and your goals. And to that, tailoring to your community, I think I've spoken to that already a little bit, but you can do it no matter the size of your community, no matter the number of businesses that you have. And I think you can always get some really tangible results out of this. Our survey, just to give a sense of what we look at, the main survey, the BRNE survey, collects business information, asks the businesses about the climate, their future plans, business development questions, so where are they going, workforce, and then community development. So you can tailor in questions that you'd like to know the answers to. It's easy to edit out questions. We don't like to ask questions that you're not going to take action on. So just being very clear with the intentions of what you're asking and why, and thinking about that in the process of designing the survey. And then we also have sector surveys, so we can get a little bit more focused into specific sectors to get content that way. So how you use the data, I talked a little bit about that, those responses that you have. So we call them red flags and green flags. So being able to address those immediate concerns as you're talking to the businesses. So you do the survey, you come back, say, okay, this was a huge issue. I need to go to planning, or I need to go to building to ask some more questions and get that resolved. So the business can see a result from the conversation. If there's an issue, They may not have as much information about maybe joining the chamber or your CIP. So being able to follow up with content that is important to them, because if they said, well, you said you were thinking about a facade improvement or some signage, here's some information in the process to do that. So just being able to walk them through and help them find those results is really key sometimes, because our businesses are busy and they don't always have time to look for those pieces. The information can help inform your strategic plans. And you can use this to help with events and different activities that you're doing, because now you've got that connection with those businesses, setting performance measures and milestones in your economic development strategic plan, and then as well as communicating back to your businesses. So it's always nice to say that we did this and here's the results, and providing a little bit more context that way. So you're building trust and you're building confidence with your businesses that way. So an example, and I think you've seen the example from the Township of Southgate. So Brenna, the Economic Development Officer there, she started with the community early last year as an officer, and she needed a way to try to understand who the businesses were in the community. So she was able to talk to about 60 businesses, a mixture of in person, on the phone. Some people filled it out and sent it back to her, so that you can do this hybrid model that way. But she found that it was a nice introduction. She was able to tell people who she was, explain what economic development in your municipality could do for your business, and then start to understand the next steps that she needed to take in terms of building her strategy and work plan as she moved forward that way. And I was just in Southgate last week, and she's brought together a downtown revitalization committee with community members, and they're doing a downtown revitalization project in Dundalk. So it was a great first step to take the next. And she did the BRNE as just staff led. So she undertook that on her own. And now she's stepping into the downtown project. She's got that group of people to really help support the project along the way, because she's built those relationships from the previous project that she did. So some final thoughts. You're building relationships that will cross to other activities, like Brenna's example in Southgate. Be realistic about how many businesses you're going to talk to, how long you want to take, just being conscious of that time frame. Ask need to know, not nice to know questions to your businesses who want to be respectful of their time, and know that you're going to be moving forward with this. Continue that follow-up. This allows you to help create that open door with your businesses so that they know you're there to support them. And really, it's a great foundational guide for being strategic with your economic development plans. So that's BRNE. Are there any questions?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, I have a couple questions, but I want everyone to have an opportunity, Crystal, certainly. And thank you very much for being here and for sharing all of this with us. It is really excited, and we're looking forward to undertaking a BRNE. And I'm not looking at Jessica as being the one to do all the work, but yeah, we want to help her to be successful. So you mentioned 60 businesses in Southgate. Is that sort of a good target for the size of Meaford, or do you sense, or do you kind of look at it from that perspective that you need kind of a certain number to get enough information to really be able to analyze and understand what's going on in the business community?
Yeah, and I was just looking at this with a colleague yesterday. We recommend the minimum is 30 interviews. 50 to 100 is ideal, because you can start to collect a little bit more substantial, broader data from that. But it all depends on how many businesses that you have, and if you are looking at specific sectors and sort of dividing things up. So that 50, 75 is probably a sweet spot in terms of that. But that can be taken into consideration in other manners too. So just knowing how many businesses that you have and kind of going through that. That's part of that preparation stage of collecting your contact information and your business lists and knowing who may be open and who maybe not be open. I've also seen some communities do a shorter survey just to collect maybe some baseline information from their businesses. So they do that in an online form and then have a follow-up that they reach out to those businesses that participated. So can we come and talk to you further and learn more about your business that way? So there's lots of different ways to approach that.
Thank you. And may I ask an additional
Yeah.
question, Mr. Chair? Thank you. I'm also wondering about the sector list. In my mind, in Meaford, we have a number of operating businesses related to healthcare, whether it's, your chiropractors, your dentists, our long-term care home. I'm wondering if a category could be added in our list that would be separate from retail to look at everyone who's, focused on personal care, healthcare of some nature.
Yep.
I just didn't know whether the survey was standard or whether it could be tailored in such a way that it would accommodate gathering information in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. So we typically ask a NAICS code question, which NAICS code would classify your business. So that can be a very extensive list depending on how many numbers you get down to. I think it's 4 or 5 in the listing that we have. So you can get more specific. So you can ask them what area they are, and then you could add an extra piece. I believe currently there's a question saying like, what services do you provide? Ask them that question, and then what services do you provide? Because businesses, some of them don't know where they classify into, right? When you talk about an agricultural business, they may see themselves as agriculture, but they're also doing manufacturing. So there's always these nuances about where they think they fit best that way. But that's definitely an area that you can customize.
Evelyn.
Thank you. Good presentation. I was just wondering about when all this information is being gathered. We don't really have a full inventory of all our businesses and things like that. Is there a way that all that information, without going back out again to ask specific things, to be able to create that inventory and list it even on municipal websites and whatever, of kind of doing both, and a way of getting kind of the okay of businesses as you're doing this activity for this purpose, and yet on the other, beginning to gain a good understanding and be able to share with the rest of the community of all the services. I mean, we're not very good at sharing how many great businesses are in our community and offer services, so people often go elsewhere because they're just not even aware that we have people who provide those services. So I'm just wondering, have some of the others who have done this done both and managed to get another product out of it? Because that might also, I don't know, encourage, our businesses have been asked over the years, but nothing's really happened. And other than, I think we did do that strategic economic development plan, but due to all sorts of other issues, it never really played out. But we're hoping this time around, we're building a more solid base and are able to implement some of those things that come out of this. Have there been other examples where they've done both, that data gathering and doing a really great report and plan that would work into a revitalized economic development strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So we call it tombstone data almost, right?
Yeah.
It's the who you are, what your website is, your contact phone number. Like generally a lot of that is public information because it's business information, but you can add a confirmation, can we include you in our new business directory or updated business directory? You can ask them if you've got a newsletter. That often communities will recognize, okay, we need to talk with this sector or this group of businesses, or we need to make sure that they're understanding funding programs that are coming out. So getting them to give the okay that we can send you communications or we can sign you up for a newsletter at that point to help start flowing that information forward. So that can all be done. What else did you ask? Did I cover a couple of them?
No, I think that was my issue is
Yeah.
because that you're out there collecting all that great data. And, you know, however we do it, if it's staff or staff with volunteers or whatever that combination will turn out to be for us. But, how we can use that data in multiple ways to be, you know, positively advertised and be part of our even our marketing or whatever.
Yeah, I think as long as you're transparent and open with how
Well,
you're going to
that's
be
my
using things.
concern is that that needs to happen at the front
Yeah.
end, and so could that be built in?
Yep.
Right from the get-go, and then we would have, you know, and then I would imagine there's ways that we would have to get back to verify that what we got. Is exactly what they feel they would like to see out there. Describing their business, so we'd have to go through that kind of step too.
Yeah, and you can often, it is a nice gesture sometimes to have some of that information filled out before you go. Right, you're going to meet Joe at his bakery, so you have some of that content already ready to go. So when you sit down and say, can you confirm the information is correct here? They can give you the yes or no. Can we include this in our business directory? Yes or no. If it's a home-based business or sometimes a farm business where they may not want to have their home address on something, it's just a matter of confirming that they're okay with that. Because I think that's where it gets a little bit more nuanced in the rural communities when your personal life and your business start to cross over that way.
Great.
Thank you very much, Crystal, for a great presentation. I have a question about other communities that have done this, and how prepared they are with the toolbox going into the system. Nothing's worse than gathering a bunch of information, and I think we've all seen it before where it's gathered, it's itemized, it sits on a really nice report on the shelf and really doesn't ever make it off that shelf. But understanding the barriers to business is critical to growth. But when we're asked, you know, what's the toolbox to help, you know, talent attraction, growth, cluster development, all of the things that go with the growth around that. Do communities actually have, in your experience, when they go in, knowing that there's an ambassador program, that there's this, there's a CIP, there's things around that are supporting that, and what is the toolbox that our interviewers would have going into that, so that they know that there's support behind it? If we're going to ask for it, we better be ready to kind of back it up with, you know, what's the next step?
Yeah, that's a great comment. I think that's part of that preparation stage where you're collecting that, like, what is the content that we have to share with them. When you go into a BRNE interview, you want to remain neutral. I think that's an important aspect of being able to sit down, have the conversation. I know I've had some experiences where we didn't have a chamber of commerce, but I was the economic development person, and he said, and how's your interaction with the chamber of commerce? And they said, great. Well, it doesn't exist. And what about the economic development office? Oh, I don't know who that is. I'm sitting right here, but you just you sit there and you take in the information, and then you follow up after, right? Because you don't want to have that back and forth. Well, we have that, right? It's it's their impression of the business and how to do business in your community. And then that's that follow-up piece with, okay, you mentioned these things and here are the supports here, like, and following up with that content after. You can also take packages, information packages to the businesses. You can create a web page on your website with those common business resources and pieces that you can direct them to. If they fill out an online survey, they can direct to those resources after. That's where the business newsletters are a really great concept too, because then you can, it's really, how do you keep businesses up to date on what's current, and is your CIP open or closed? What other funding is available? The network of resources, I think, is a key component. So knowing how the chamber can support businesses, how your community futures office or your small business center, the different activities that have, where they cross over. When you're being a little more strategic with the content that you're collecting, having all of those people around the table and not saying the town is going to do everything. Right? Because you don't want to have to take onus over all of the actions, because you have other resources and support networks. So this can help strengthen that. The content that you collect and the information, I guess, in terms of like that cluster development and some of those more the talent attraction pieces, I've seen BRNE's, the content of that report used to move forward with getting funding for specific actions too. So the more data that you have that can showcase the need for something, the stronger those applications can be when you're looking to those funding sources too. So they often like to see a plan or one of those pieces in place or strategic elements so that they feel confident moving forward with those actions that is vital to your community.
Sure.
One follow-up question. Do you have any background or information on the effectiveness of a third party doing the study versus an actual municipal employee? Just because I think the expectation is different, and the examples that can be expressed from an outside third party versus a municipal employee would be different. So any comments you had on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I don't have any sort of scholarly content at this moment to share with that. I think you do have to think about how you're setting up for that consulting piece. How engaged is your staff with the process? What steps, how are they engaging with the businesses, the numbers that they're connecting with? I think there's pros and cons on both sides, but really taking the concepts that we teach in the Ontario model and building that in at some point, right? So your sequence may change, but if you want to build those relationships and you want to create that accountability and credibility with your businesses and your municipality, those are all things that probably need to be done in face-to-face manners or in collective rooms. If the consultant would do more of like roundtable discussions or focus groups, that's often a nice way to be able to kind of get a better tone of how things are going sometimes too. So just be considerate of if you got a phone call with a survey or an email, how would you respond versus somebody who's at your door asking those questions too. We always say that they are confidential interviews, so we don't, you would scrub your data so that it's not saying whose business it is and whatnot. So everything is rolled up so that it's not showcasing the exact people in that sense too. So the consultant would do the same, but really it's how you move forward with those actions in either case.
I may just follow up with a comment and question. One is I'm going to piggyback a little bit on Evelyn, and it's funny because you, in your presentation, you kind of presumptively said a couple of times in their business directory, and that would be assuming we had one because we don't. And that's, to me, again, that's just another sign of, I think, where we've kind of probably fallen short, because I think that should be like, even as a baseline, just a basic business directory would be a real value add, just as a municipal support mechanism for our community. So that's something that we really want to see this build towards. My question was more about timeframe. So when your experience of doing this, just where you see kind of realistic timeframes on achieving the kind of BRNE?
Yeah, so it all depends on how you approach it. I've done that quick and dirty kind of get information with an online survey. I've done one personally where we started in November and I had to report to council by January. But they had funding that they wanted to get to the businesses. So there was a purpose to that, right? So it was really ground truthing the actions that you were going to do. A very traditional survey that took 175 businesses where we all went out and interviewed. That was more of a year-long process to go through once you're bringing everyone together and working through the information. But I think typically Brenna's in Southgate, she took about 6 months to do hers. So thinking it really is how long do you are you going to take to talk to your businesses? How many can you schedule in a week? How many people are supporting that process? That's a key element. So that 3 to 6 months can sometimes be that factor. But it all depends on that approach and how long your survey is too.
Great, thank you. Okay,
Okay, and I had, Jessica, you want me to talk about the business mix and location?
Yeah, sure.
The presentation back up. So business mix and
you're, don't think that's me. It's not me doing it, but it's me speaking, yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm not omnipotent. I didn't do that.
Okay, so Jessica had asked if I talk a little bit about business mix and location analysis. So this is one of the elements of the downtown revitalization program that we offer. And you can take these things out separately and do them and sort of we're tailoring everything from rural affairs. So building a business inventory, really this kind of goes back to that understanding who your businesses are, getting in contact with your businesses, understanding what's vacant, what's being operated out of those businesses. Second floor, third floor is also something to consider with that. But you're able to estimate your size of your downtown employment base. Planning likes to know how many employees per square kilometer, I think it is, and understand what clusters that you have in your downtown, how people are participating and shopping in your downtown too. We encourage people do a photo inventory. It's always nice, even with your CIP, having those photos of the before and after can be really strong in terms of showcasing the value of that investment. Showcasing the database. So if it's a business directory or if it's just an internal document that you have listing of everything that's involved there, it can be very helpful just in terms of tracking and monitoring what's happening in your downtown. Your chamber, your BIA, your other directories, those are all sources too. So you can go out to your downtown and take a pen and paper and just do a physical inventory map and really collect that information in that sense. Or you can use those other resources to fill it and fill the gaps that way. And an image. So really it looks very just general in the sense of what you're doing, right? This is the map of the downtown. They've identified the purpose of the businesses. So this is where you're looking at what's clustering, bless you. the niches and clusters in your area. So what are the public spaces that people are gathering in? Public areas, washrooms, all of those types of things, parking. How does that engage and interact with your businesses? And then the highlights on this image. So the pink would be service, green is hospitality, you've got retail, and you've got vacant. So really seeing that visualization lets you understand what that mix looks like. And then you can take the next step and do a commercial structural analysis. You use volunteers, or a group like yourselves could go out and take on a task like this. And you would collect all the information that you would need. We have some training information about how to do that, so you can work with your groups to be able to undertake that analysis. And then we do a classification. So like those highlights on the map, understanding what's retail, service, restaurant, entertainment, other or vacant are the three different areas. And then consumer classification. So that's taking a step from the retail and then understanding what's convenience purchase, comparison, destination, food or public services. So how are people engaging with those businesses? Are these quick stops that locals are doing with the convenience purchases? Is it like a jewelry store or furniture store where people are coming from further away, and they're maybe just coming with that store in mind? And then how can you engage those businesses so that you get them to creep into the other stores as well while they're there? So thinking about placement, about how your downtown looks, and how you're directing people that way. And then price of goods, that takes the classification to the next step, low, average, and high. So having a better understanding of who that consumer is when they're shopping there. And then we provide some different forms collection. They're fairly basic forms, but we provide those structures that you can put into an Excel sheet, or you can put into a survey to be able to collect that information. And we have the listings of sort of where everything falls, so that you have the guidebook of figuring out how to do that classification of your businesses that way. And then Gananoque, this is their commercial structure classification map. So they've got it all laid out, and then you have a better sense of what's where. This can help in attracting businesses. So if you're looking at different clusters, or you're thinking about what's missing, this content will help guide some of that in terms of attraction and working with realtors that way. And I think that's all I've got on that. It's a fairly simple explanation of that process, but really it's about putting yourself into your downtown, into that area, and getting that understanding of what's there. I think it's also valuable to look at the second floor if there's services or other businesses, or if you're trying to understand what accommodations do you have in your downtown in terms of apartments and things like that. That could potentially, I've seen some communities use their CIP for downtown apartments, and creating some of those spaces that way, encouraging that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Crystal. That's very, very great information, very useful. Are there any questions on that section for Crystal from anyone? Seeing nothing, well, thank you very much for coming again, and really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. So under items consideration, point C, tourism apple pie trail discussion is an example on there. I just wanted to bring this forth because, again, you're going to see this on council meeting on Monday. I think this was a classic example of, again, what we've talked about here is, again, where we've been and where we want to be. from a tourism perspective, and I'd really kind of like to get the feel of this body's kind of take on tourism and where we should be. The apple pie trail scenario is one that through the budget process, because it was trying to be whittled down from such a large number, this ended up, even though it was only $2,000, ended up getting jettisoned because it just looked like, okay, that was easy pickings, no pun intended. And the net result being that it literally impacted businesses that participate in the apple pie trail who couldn't participate if we weren't as a municipality involved. So it was very short-sighted, and it's gonna come back and we're gonna be kind of revisiting that and very likely carrying it forward. But it's just an example, again, from a tourism perspective, where do you feel, from growing our economy perspective, where should we be? What's our role in the community, in the, from a municipal perspective? I just wanted to put this on here to kind of raise that little bit of discussion. No pressure. Read.
Well, the fact that we're a community on the bay means that, people are attracted to the area for all different kinds of reasons. Everything from, skiing, shopping, beach, parks, you name it, green space trails. I don't think we can ignore that we are very intricately linked to tourism. Is the apple pie trail the strongest endeavor we could take? I don't know. And I don't think we really can judge that until we kind of have a vision for the community on what we are and where we're going. And that kind of leads me to the question, do we know where we are in terms of a community vision and its development?
Glad you brought that up. So, and unfortunately you weren't here when we just had a little sub conversation before, when we talked about with the new CAO, Mr. Everett, we had a conversation, myself, Nisa, Jessica, and Sarah Mahone, and we did visit and talked about the BR&E, kind of where that fit into plans, the community vision, the strat plan. And he is fully aware and believes as well that these are all high priorities that need to be, which weren't necessarily priorities in past iterations. And I really feel that now we're moving towards more of an ECDEV design where that will be more of a focus. One of the things I did there, and again, it would be interesting to know the take here, is one thing that's always kind of bothered me about our municipal budget is the fact that it is very tough to lean in there two things. One, literally ECDEV dollars, and B, tourism dollars. They're kind of, by admission of past administration, they're kind of baked in. But that doesn't help you identify literally what you are spending and trying to accomplish. And I've asked at that, and I will bring it to council, and when we do the next budget, I would love to see, what is our actual ECDEV line? What, let's get a number and let's make a commitment to the community. What's our tourism? What is that? And what are we spending and what should we be doing? Because those things, if we can't even identify it, how do we know where we're falling short? It just doesn't make sense to me. So to your point, yes, from a visioning perspective, he also said, yes, that was very high on his priority list. And again, in conjunction with council, we have to have that conversation, it has to be agreed on. But I just believe that if we are going to look at tourism as part and parcel of what we are, what you just said, like we're a 4-season playground, I keep being told, and yet we don't groom our trail that, kind of it ends at Thornbury, and then, you're not really welcome to keep coming because we don't groom our trail. CAO Everett agreed 100%, and he always saw that as kind of a shortcoming for Meaford. So once again, it's all about perspective from leadership and kind of community involvement, council involvement, leadership from staff. Hopefully we can get this to a point where we are kind of rowing the same direction and have the same goals. That's my take, and that's a long-winded answer to kind of but he does feel that the visioning is extremely important in that process. BR&E being kind of the low-hanging fruit we can kind of do immediately, but we need to really grasp that that aspect of visioning to move forward. Go ahead.
Although
Yes.
BRE would benefit greatly from understanding the vision and talking to all of those stakeholders. And, it's, it's all part of the mix, and
Yes.
I think we're really missing out.
Evelyn, or go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that some of the information collection that we need to do will help inform those conversations moving forward. I don't know how that helps the immediate decision, but there's always going to be the nice to do versus the need to do or the strategic to do.
Yes.
And I think that it's hard to even know the alignment with, is this trail the one that brings the people that we feel will support the other businesses that are here? Or is it just the wrong target? So I think we need some information on that.
Agreed. Evan?
Yeah, I'm basically agreeing. I think both my colleagues here and I think your comments that without council kind of getting a feel on what are the priorities, and then we need to spill that out. I think it would be easier to pass those kinds of, look at those recommendations and say, do they fit in? When people bring recommendations forward for resolutions to be approved. If it says it fits within our priorities or it doesn't fit in our, or the more strategic versus nice to have things. I think you're always going to be grappling with that. And I think it is hard because everybody's going to be affected by something. So our need for those key priorities that the community establishes, and then, we revisit 5 years or 8 years down the road. Is there a shift in some of those priorities? But that will really help, I think, decision-making on, minor things like, do we contribute to this or to that? Because you need to have that support and that agreement too. It's hard to do that in a vacuum without the community priorities being established.
Shirley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate all the comments that have been shared, and I certainly agree because in my mind, tourism is pretty just disjointed at this point in time. I mean, the budget includes $23,000 and change for stocking a kiosk at Meaford Hall, and that's sort of our only budget line for tourism. And I don't know that people necessarily know to go into the hall to look for a brochure. I think the natural place to go for information is to the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, we've got the Big Apple and it will be staffed, and I appreciate the Chamber's done a lot of work on the Apple. It looks great. And I think we just need to be working more together so that we're able to direct people where to go to get information. I mean, we've got a lot of our organizations, Christmas on the Bay, Beautiful Joe, Scarecrow, for example, all doing a lot of outreach to attract people into Meaford, thinking of, a potential of more collaboration in that regard. I mean, we did our branding exercise quite a few years ago now that came up with the Love It Here theme, which I think still seems to work because inevitably when I talk to people that are new to the community and, and ask them why Meaford, and it's no more than 3 sentences before they're saying, I love it here. I love the hospital. I love the library. It always comes out. So that seems to still fit. And I think Grey County is doing an excellent job of tourism attraction. We weren't included in the current Gather campaign, but I've been certainly advocating for that. And we've had the host of that, Roger Mooking, into Meaford. And I know Jessica has talked with him and had him into the new fire hall and so on. So I know he'll be here. I've talked to him about Coffin Ridge and got him kind of intrigued about the naming behind Coffin Ridge. So that'll happen. But I think there are some low-hanging fruit opportunities for us. I was walking a couple of nights ago and looking at those kiosks down beside the Apple those really, really need an update. And the purpose of those always was that if the Apple was closed, that people could walk over there and kind of get a sense of what was going on. So I think that's something we could look at in the near future to see if we couldn't give those a revamp and just take an overall look at our website and how we're promoting Meaford and what we can do. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done there, and maybe some of, more ideas will come out of the BRNE, and we can start to put together a really, comprehensive plan of how we can improve the attraction of tourism to Meaford.
Piggybacking on that a little bit, and again, that's why it's really unfortunate that CAO Everett couldn't be here today, because what you've said is absolutely correct. And what it requires is beyond even council or community, it really requires enthusiasm from staff, because that CAO position is a leadership position. It sets the tone, and we need to make sure that we are kind of pulling the same direction, and that their heart's really in it. And I believe that this particular CAO is. So, and I'm really hoping that he can, I don't want to speak for him, but hopefully that he will be here at the next meeting, and that we could have this conversation in a much more informative way from that perspective, because he will be coming in and being very new. He is setting up the structure of what the municipality is going to look like. And that is what we are hoping is going to be part of that. And if this body can provide some direction in that or advice in that, then I think that's value add as well. So I really would like to see Mr. Everett at the table so we can have this kind of conversation and then carry it to the next level. But very, very apt points. Thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else on that, then I will move forward, and we're going to have under items information. So this is going to fit in perfectly well with Crystal's presentation, because I know it's going to piggyback and going to say all the right supportive things about the community businesses. So I'm going to invite JD to Matt Meaford here to give a little presentation on the Chamber of Commerce. Just turn the mic on there. Sorry, JD. Thanks. Thank you.
Before I start, if I could have just a couple of moments to some follow-up comments from the things that I've heard here today. I didn't know if I had a place back there to do that. So now that I'm at the podium, I will do that. Maybe as the formulation of the BIA idea moves forward, and there might be continued feedback regarding the idea of the focus of that group. If that remains to be a downtown focused type of organization, and if that's how it plays out, that's fine, but maybe it be renamed the DIA at that point, giving a clear title to what they hope to do. Then there's no confusion as to how far out, wherein, however it should work, that'd be a downtown improvement organization, and they'll absolutely work with the chamber, I hope, in expanding our concepts, which would involve all business, because that's what, of course, the chamber's to do, is to represent all business and advocate for all business in the municipality. So that might be a suggestion. Also, to Crystal, if there's any room, I sense that there might be some room for some collaboration regarding the chamber and BRNE in this area. And if that means volunteering, providing resources, helping to put together the interview itself, the way we speak to these businesses, because I feel like some of that data is exactly what we're trying to forage as we rebuild our memberships. So it's a couple thoughts. All right. Thank you for having me here this afternoon. This is a presentation I did a couple of months ago to council regarding requisite for funds to support the new and improved Meaford Chamber of Commerce. A new era of innovation, collaboration, and growth in the purest sense. An idea of the image of the chamber sitting kind of quietly over the last year and a half, and that time is finished, and we're into a new era of energy, of ideas, of growth, positivity. And those are the things that we're focusing on as we carry through with our mandates as a chamber to represent and to advocate great existing and new business, as of yet maybe undiscovered business in this community. The summary based on our bold new idea of what the chamber could and should be with revitalized purpose, integrated some of the ideas that Main Street Meaford were about to set forth, and all the positivity for economic growth and focusing on those businesses. As far as the chamber is concerned, trust building and rebuilding, image building and rebuilding, and innovation. Really, that with a new time and a new age that we're entering as a community, there have to be some new ideas that go with that to make great things happen and continue to happen in the future. Our mission statement, which like many other things has been sort of revamped for the 2025 chamber, is to champion Meaford's economic development and support businesses, fostering entrepreneurship and new ideas, and building strong community connections that enhance the quality of life in general and sustain local prosperity. For those who have businesses, to enjoy running and growing those businesses and being successful from them, and for the rest of us, residents, just to enjoy the environment created by thriving, great businesses in this community. Our vision as well, to establish the chamber as a cornerstone of Meaford's economical and social ecosystem, empowering businesses and fostering a vibrant community. And that's kind of where we come into play as we put together our plan to grow our memberships, to hear these businesses, to find out how things have worked for them in the past involving a chamber, how they haven't, and moving forward with new collaborative ideas to see that they're heard and able to feel that they're contributing to bigger and better things because their opinions and their thoughts are being considered. Our strategic priorities moving forward are to strengthen membership services, and we are currently underway with that as we speak, putting a plan together to face-to-face see a lot of these businesses and to get that data, get the information, their thoughts and concerns from our recent formulation of the chamber, and moving forward what they'd like to see us do for them, because that's primarily what we're there for, is for them to advocate for those businesses and to see them grow. Enhancing programming and events, and in fact to collaborate with those events that have already been successful in the area, Summerfest, Scarecrow Invasion, Meaford Dragons, etc. To build sustainable funding models through the chamber so that the ask that I made a couple of months ago might not need to be repeated in a few years, that we can become a self-sustaining chamber that way, and to foster communication and engagement, to be really the hub of all questions. And we know we will never have all the answers, but we hope we can be relied on to go seek those answers out. As businesses ask, visitors ask, council asks. To strengthen membership services, quite simple, to deliver more value to our members, and with that, using the technology of the day to help support that. A lot more reliance on digital properties to help deliver messages to these businesses and amongst each other and to the community in general, to the public. Through advocacy network and resource hubs to have valued information for those who need it, even if it's about other businesses, to know that they could sit in a good category because it's not being served by another business. And to through our after fives, foster an atmosphere of networking and collaboration so that people can see more of the faces behind the businesses. We appreciate that everyone's working every day, at least 9 to 5, so they don't get a chance to see each other face to face. And sometimes our after fives are a great vehicle to have people actually get to meet the people behind the scenes of these businesses. And to foster community engagement and attract visitors. An attractive downtown core, an attractive business community means an attractive community. Great place for people to come and extend their stays, stay a night and then browse around and shop a bit and then take in a show. And maybe that becomes a second night to stay and a night becomes a weekend and so forth. See, building sustainable funding models. That's the trick that we continue to try to work on with Chamber as we're putting our plans forward, involving some of the pre-existing special events that are already successful and trying to come up with some more of our own, some things that had been tried and true with Chambers in the past that we'd like to bring back potentially. So there we go. To secure financial stability for long-term operations, and as I mentioned, to become self-sustained in doing so, and to increase partnerships and sponsorship opportunities. Again, a chance as a chamber to showcase and profile and advocate and cheerlead great businesses by having them involved with some of the projects that we put together and that we work with other organizations on. To foster communication and engagement, to remain absolutely transparent in what we're up to, because we'll continue to tell people what we're up to. We've got a nice liaison set up regarding our meetings every month. And we in fact have someone from the municipality in our office every Friday morning, which is a nice touch too. Again, communicating back and forth, relaying information and helping to create that transparency. And as well with a consistent schedule that we're putting together with our chamber office, a lot more of a reliable outreach for our member businesses and for new businesses to stop in and find out about so that they can become future members. To strengthen that online presence, as I mentioned, the digital age has been here a while, and we're just always trying to catch up with it. But to use our website and especially our social media abilities to reach out to businesses and to reach out to the public so that they get a real sense, a true sense of what's available for them here and less need to visit elsewhere. And to build a strong positive reputation within the community. Through collaboration and partnerships, again, adapting some of the Main Street Meaford principles, positivity and growth and beatification. I mentioned in my last presentation, whatever formulation that Meaford Downtown may take, we are here to collaborate with them, provide to them resources and time and advice if we can to help with any of the initiatives that they've had in the past regarding the beautification of the downtown core and any associated fun events. So to work with the downtown promotions group primarily and to build a unified vision for a vibrant and thriving downtown core. What better thing than to have a downtown that people are always wondering what they're up to next. What's the next cool thing? What thing should I check into? How can I find out what's going on this weekend as I arrived from elsewhere to come to Meaford? So we do have, it's a new board, but it's an old board as well. Several of us have kind of sat in the tertiary circles in the background and have stepped up into new roles, inspired by the possibilities of what could be. So there is a sense of new blood, even if some of that was still there. Some of the old guard are now stepping back as well to allow this to happen. But we're always on the search for new members as well, new board members. So if there's interest, we want to foster that as well. Even if it's a business that sees how well things are going with the new and improved chamber, that maybe they want to be part of that as well and get in closer. We want to be able to provide support staff as well. And in several cases, we're building subcommittees of our various side projects through the chamber so that we've got lots of bodies to help step up to support other initiatives. If it's Meaford Downtown, if it's the town itself, any organization that again is needing resources, and people are the greatest resource, that we have bodies to be able to provide that. and to cultivate a culture of shared purpose and collaboration. And we want that to be seen maybe more so than anywhere else in our new office. The old office, but it's been given a paint job. So I want to create a new atmosphere in the office, like everything else, a little more casual, a little more friendly, a little more come in and stay for a while, just like we hope people do when they come to Meaford. Just come in and stay for a little bit and find out a few more things than you thought you thought you knew beforehand. We've got a 3-year plan. That was the budget ask when we did that for council a couple of months ago, to lay the foundation in year 1, to build the momentum, and to really be seen as a part of great things that continue to happen in Meaford, and then to deliver the impact in year 3 and refine our strategies, figure out clearly what's really working well, what's we tried and failed at, and what we can look towards something new as well as we move ahead in year 3. And then with that, a call to action. The new vision of the chamber we've already implemented. I could tell you just by the people that are involved in our boards, there is a new revitalized positivity. We had a whole lot of people that weekend when we remodeled the chamber office, and there's a lot more of a buy-in from our board for sure as to moving forward what it is we hope to do. We want to really bolster what we look at and how we appear as far as in the community, support the strategic plans implementation, and help make a bright future for Meaford, brighter future as it continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, JD. Really appreciate it. And I'm really so glad to hear that the chamber is revitalized. It's really, really exciting. Are there any questions for JD? Wendy?
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation. I appreciate hearing the enthusiasm and interest in participating in some of the things that we're working on.
Mhm.
And I just wondered what your opinion is on how do you see the chamber engaging with this committee moving forward? What's the frequency? How formal is it? Are you
With BRNE
just with
plan, you mean, or?
this committee, the growing the economy, because there's a lot of overlap in
Yeah.
some of the things that you're working on. And I see the chamber being an excellent partner in a lot of these initiatives. And so I just wondered if the group has had any thought about that.
I can't speak for the board at this point, but I feel as though it's like anything else that I will insist on when it comes to our board, that it's just a simple exchange of ideas. Contact any one of us. We can let this committee know when our meetings are, and then get you on our agenda, that you'll be there to pop in and say hey and ask what you're looking to ask for, and keep us, if you want, apprised of what's going on regarding your next plan, your next project, and we'll help in any way we can.
I'm going to apologize for calling. JD and Wendy come as a package. I had Wendy in my mind for some reason. I said, go ahead, Wendy, not Kelly. So sorry.
Oh,
about
did
that.
he say?
It's subliminal. I just can't believe it. All right. Anyway, other questions or comments? Reed, go ahead.
Thank you very much for your presentation, JD. I'm excited that the chamber is revitalized, and let me applaud you on how you've taken over the Apple and your new kind of design for pop-ups throughout the summer. I think it's a great idea that the businesses of downtown would be the ambassadors for tourists coming through. I think it's a great mix. I have some suggestions. I guess maybe it would be called a wish list for the chamber, because I really see it as a revitalization. It is the temperature of the downtown, like the area. I think a lot more collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce of Ontario and Canada, because they, they are kind of the umbrella organizations of which all chambers kind of follow through on. If you go to their sites, they have, business directories and, you know, we should be kind of harnessing that resource and perhaps having a speaker series of hosted by the chamber to come in and talk to other businesses.
And a lot of benefits to be part and to impart on the members, our
Yeah,
members,
yeah.
you know, that
Absolutely. I think some recognition programs, they do trade awards. And, you know, you might have to search a little bit throughout our municipality to find people that are doing international trade, but I'm sure there's some. And I think recognition programs, embracing even student entrepreneurial jobs for summer, you know, small business do give grants for that. And I think that, you know, getting them to think about businesses and things early is a good thing. So I think I've mentioned, familiarization tours with other communities, what their chambers are doing. Obviously, if a business is operating in Meaford, you know, just take, for example, the Bayside Chrysler. They want to sell Chryslers to more than just Meaford. And, you know, so the after fives, particularly sometimes when you've joined together with Blue Mountain or whatever, I think some of those are very, very successful. So anyways,
great
keep
points.
going.
Thank you.
Evelyn?
Well, you already hit quite a few of those items that I was thinking about. As everybody here has already shared, I think I'm as caught up in the enthusiasm, so that enthusiasm is spreading. So I'm really happy about it, having been a member of the chamber for over 30 years, so it's great. And I think the game plan that you've laid out is really exciting. You know, based over a 3-year plan. I would like to really support that whole partnering outside of the community, because many of our businesses depend on more than I think our local economy would provide for them, and the contacts and their opportunities to develop potential partnerships also increases. I think over the whole 30 years, I've only been to 2 that were done jointly with other chambers, and there's a lot of activity going on, you know, with other chambers that are close to us, and I think more of that collaborative thing would be absolutely terrific
All
to
right.
assist with.
We'll reach out further
To
for
reach
that.
out.
Yeah.
And even if it's just attend and advertise their events, but say, hey, you know.
Yeah. Check out ours.
It's that we support each other, you know, and I think that's the message I'm getting from your, you know, your documents and your statements. So, and I think helping ourselves internally and collaborating with each other, but it's as critical that we do that with our broader community. And I didn't quite think internationally, but that ain't no reason for that, you know, because there are some couple of businesses that are really focusing on some of that international side. So let's think bigger and build those bridges. So anything you can do with that would be exciting.
Okay. In answer to your point, Reed, about student entrepreneurship, that's an element that we're absolutely bringing into the frame of Meaford Dragons, such that the pureness, the purity of the idea of the next great business, maybe not existing yet, but in the mind of a young entrepreneur afraid to bring it forward, we certainly want to foster that as early as this year.
Surely.
I just have one, I
Sure.
just wanted to follow up that again, for the chamber. Just like we as a municipality should be shouting from the rooftops our great businesses. There's a lot of student businesses that are doing exceptionally well, and I think that could be a role. I just hired a young chap that has been starting a business over the summers, you know, while he's going to school. And he's grown that business and is really, you know, like, I think talking and sharing about those stories, that should be done by quite a few, and I think many of us have seen one of our local businesses begin to do that over the last few months, where she's done shout outs on Facebook about all the great businesses. And the more I think all of us can begin to do that, I think that's what's going to talk about and be part of improving our economy. And so anything the chamber can do, and I know we as a committee would like to see more of that done, because some of the most successful economic development initiatives are done in communities where everybody talks about and shares the stories of their business colleagues. And I think there's a big lesson there for all of us.
It's a great endorsement from one business to speak well of another one.
That's exactly.
Thank you, Evelyn. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I completely agree. Telling the stories, when that's well done, it really gets our attention and we remember that. But I just want to thank you for being here today, JD, and to say I've heard your presentation, I think twice now, and it still makes me smile and gets me excited. So this is a really,
Okay.
really excellent strategy. A couple of things as we talk about, opportunities. And I do recognize the Board are all volunteers and your time is limited. But the Business Enterprise Center in Owen Sound, working under Grey County, does a really superb job of supporting new businesses and entrepreneurial businesses in particular. And I just think sometimes a new business maybe just doesn't know where to turn. And if part of what our chamber could do would be to direct businesses to the associations that are already well established. The Henry Bernick is in Owen Sound now at Georgian College, and just to kind of help with that resource side of things. But I loved your comment at our council meeting about potentially sharing the office space with the BIA. I have that vision in my mind now, and I just think that could be really brilliant. But what I really wanted to talk about was advocacy, because that's really big in my mind. And I appreciate that you've already been to council twice already, I think, and talking about different concerns that are impacting our businesses. So now I'm going to give you another one. Council is now looking at the STA bylaw, the short-term accommodation bylaw. And I suspect you have a number of members who perhaps own Airbnbs, and
Likely,
whether or
yeah.
not that's anything that yourself or the board would have time to pass an opinion on that, could be very helpful to council, because please keep doing that advocacy. It
Okay.
really, really helps us. Bringing that voice from businesses and from the chamber is critically important, and you do it really well, JD. So
Thank you.
I know I'm putting a lot on you, but whenever you can, please continue to come and talk to council on any of those issues that are
Okay.
impacting businesses.
I'm way ahead of you. Chris Sherry
Yeah.
approached me earlier this week, last week, and asked for something in writing on behalf of the chamber that sort of spoke to our thoughts on the organization, how short-term rentals would work, and how it can complement the business community like Meaford. Boy, I see so many benefits. Like anything, that you need to look at both sides for sure, but gosh, I just think the benefits outweigh the pros outweigh the cons for sure when it comes to creating more opportunities for more people to reside in Meaford longer. It just gives us that much more opportunity for them to see everything else. So, but he has that letter. So when he brings it to you, you'll have it, I guess.
Thank you again, JD.
right.
I'm gonna just finish that with, it's funny because Evelyn and Reed, what you're kind of talking about there, and the cross pollination. I find one thing that was really interesting when COVID happened, and afterwards there was a task force, and we were both on it. And at one point in there, we actually had a meeting of every kind of event organization got together, because how was it going to go on after COVID and all that. And one thing that always resonated with me was and again, our new CAO, he commented to me the other day in the meeting, he said he was absolutely blown away when he came here. He, from the Thornbury and Blue Mountains perspective, always looked over and said, always seems to be a lot going on in Meaford. And he kind of saw that as well. And he said, until I got here, and he says, the amount of events that happens and volunteerism that happens in this community, he said he found it found astounding. Like Blue Mountains has nothing like that. So having said that, so going back to, I've always thought there should be a body out there that could kind of help consolidate that events kind of package, because if they work together and cross promoted all of our events, just think of how much stronger they'll be. We're all in such silos, and whether it's the Meaford Culture Foundation or Christmas on the Bay, or it's the Scarecrows or it's Dragons, we're all so insular in terms of what we're doing. But if we all kind of touted each other's things all year and try to get that messaging out there, and it just needs that kind of spearhead, some organization to sort of be that conduit for to do that, because we're all connected, but we're all separate. And so to be that, as much as chamber is business, I also see that as a great opportunity to be that, because not only it benefits the chamber as well, because not only because all those people, either some of them are in businesses, or they definitely know business people and they certainly shop at them or they use them. So that's also a great in from a customer service aspect to get into them. So I just see events in Meaford, which are so prevalent, as being a great vehicle for so many things, but we should be espousing it so much more collectively. So just whether or not chamber can think of some way to kind of empower that as well, might be another advantage.
Even as simple as to have everyone know when everything else is happening.
Yes.
So that there's no little overlapping, very little that's, we're forgetting about this because this is the happening. And
Yeah.
because I've seen that in a given calendar year. So yeah,
Yes.
we'll work towards that.
And even beyond the overlapping, what I find is the amount of times I've heard people say, I didn't know that was on.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy, because we try and get messaging out there so much, and yet there's so many holes in what we do, that we need to be shouting this from the rooftops of all the great things that are happening in our community. And again, we need all those voices kind of working together.
Local media can help with that too, I'm sure.
I've heard they do good work. in
Well,
that
they can,
regard, yes.
you know, they can.
Always get a plug in. That's good, JD. Thank you very much again. So moving on, are there any committee inquiries? And seeing nothing, well, I'll move on to nope. Communications. I don't believe we have any today, Sue. But in future, the committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments, thoughts, or concerns with members of the committee, the public can send an email to clerk@meaford.ca. When emails are received to this email address, they will be compiled into a correspondence list, which is then distributed to committee members prior to the meeting. The cover sheet of this list will be included on each meeting agenda. The contents of the correspondence list are not included on the public agenda to protect their privacy and personal information of those residents who choose to send in their thoughts and comments. The date of the next meeting is Wednesday, July 16, 2025, and hope to see you then. And I thank everyone for coming today and participating. And at that, I will call the meeting adjourned.